What's a good word, everyone? It's your boy DKB here. I just want to say thanks for all the support. The channel's been steadily growing, and the number you see below, you can drop a text, shoot a voicemail, any ideas, topics, collabs, etc. you guys want to see. I'll include them in future videos and live streams, and I'll catch you again. Be easy. What's a good word, Jets fans? It's your boy DKB here, and I wanted to talk about the New York Jets with the 7th overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft class being one of the biggest wild cards. I want to say probably quietly, right? I think when you look at Aaron Glenn and everything he's promoted and actively shown us in terms of having his blueprint on this organization, the 170 employees that we offer buyouts to in the front office, how he selected his coaching staff, the pivot from Lance Newmark to Darren Muji, how we handle free agency, the extensions we've given out. The draft is the last domino to fall. And even then, based on his history, whatever Aaron Glenn decides to do should be fun, right? You take a look at him picking a running back early, a linebacker early, when there was definitely other pressing needs, and really just his philosophy to building out the roster, and also his approach to not wanting to really consider this a rebuild in year one, as opposed to him just wanting to win right out of the gate. You can't rule out that there might be some surprise picks that help him achieve that goal while still being able to handle long-term success. So I have 7 players here that I want to break down that could be a surprise pick for us at 7, and what that would mean for a pretty significant change in draft strategy. But let me know who would be your preferred pick out of these 7 that we discuss here in a moment, or if you don't see someone on the list that you absolutely love or would at least be okay with as a surprise pick, drop it down in the comments for me. Now, to start things off, we're going to go with a familiar name recently because of some rumors out there in running back Ashton Jeanty. And realistically, this would be a home run pick from a talent standpoint, because literally nobody's questioning anything that he can perform in his skill set, right? I think there's things you would like to see a little bit more of, like what he can do as a receiver, but there's a reason that while it's not his playing style, many people will comp what he can do from an impact standpoint to like an Alvin Kamara. He's a world beater. Obviously, you know what he's going to do on the ground, but he's also shown his ability to dominate with whatever touches he gets in the receiving game. And he has the physical tools and the mentality to stand up as a pass blocker as well. So really, the question mark will be, why would this make sense for the Jets? Because the rumors out there were, of course, we have a high affinity for Jeanty, and that's probably on the heels of Breece Hall being due for an extension since he was a second-round pick, and maybe we don't want to pay that price, right? And so you save some decent amount of millions and reset with who your starting running back is going to be by getting Jeanty. Now, I think he fits in a ton of schemes: wide zone, West Coast, power, gap, you name it. He's going to be able to pull it off at a highly elite level. And I think there's a reason why some people would consider him probably a top 5 running back walking into the NFL. If you believe that Aaron Glenn is malleable, then this still works out for you. But if you believe in kind of what he's discussed in terms of Breece Hall isn't a workhorse back, we plan on operating this as a kind of committee approach, and maybe the hot hand discussion is still thrown out there. You don't draft Ashton Jeanty for him not to see, 300 touches a year, 350 maybe, right? Especially for a team in us where we expect to be a lot more run oriented. You probably want to save the wear and tear and all that kind of stuff, but in the same token, this is a guy that you want the ball in his hands. He'll be as dominant with the first touch of the ball as he'll be on the 30th touch throughout the course of a game. And again, as we discussed, the impact, but I don't know if it's worth saving the couple million for whatever an extension for Breece Hall looks like, as opposed to bringing in Ashton Jeanty and then trying to rotate him in with Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis. Or maybe you do something wild and they consider the combination of Jeanty and Breece with Braylon Allen, and then Isaiah Davis is kind of sitting on the back burner, which will make me a bit sad because Isaiah Davis is my guy. But there's a number of ways to look at this. I just don't know if it's the best bang for buck. Obviously fits the year one winning mentality that Aaron Glenn would look for, but it wouldn't be my favorite, but I wouldn't hate it if that is the name on the card that gets turned in. For the second option, Malachi Starks. I think it's easy to see him coming in and filling the Brian Branch role within this New York Jets defense. And this would also bring in strategies around how we plan on evolving the secondary under Aaron Glenn, much like we've seen with the significant changes again in Detroit. I think Andre Sisco probably more closely fills that Kirby Joseph type role, even though it's not a apples to apples type situation there, but immediate impact player. I still consider Malachi Starks to essentially be one of the blue chips in this draft class. I think he's taken a hit because his combine performance didn't necessarily live up to what you've seen on tape. And of course, his 2024 season kind of took a production hit as opposed to the dominance we've seen in 2023, but he still looked elite. You could just tell that it wasn't as highly consistent as it was from year to year, but this is a guy that's still going to come in and on day one, not only do I think he strongly pushes Tony Adams, he could just outright win it and take it from him. And then, of course, you have the ability to utilize him all over that back seven. So this is a guy that I just think positional value doesn't say that you take this guy unless he ends up just being a Jamal Adams type, right? Or somebody of that ilk. And I'm not saying he isn't necessarily that either, but even if you don't consider him a blue chip, he might be just literally a tick or two behind that. I still think that he'll walk out as being one of the best safeties out from this draft class without a doubt. But again, positional need, it being safety, the value, you can argue that we filled it already reasonably well. This would just be a pick that says I want a guy that can impact our defense now, as well as ensuring that I have somebody I'm going to be comfortable with for the next 4 to 5 years, since we don't really have anybody locked up long term, right? Tony Adams signed his tender for 1 year. Andre Sisco is on a 1 year. You want to get somebody in that you can build with and build around long term. Starks fits that building. Now with the third one, this is the biggest question mark pick I think we would have, right? This linebacker Jahad Campbell is the name here. And not only is there not a need, this would be a long-term play, right? If you don't want to pay Quincy and you're considering maybe an in-season trade or just looking at, I'm definitely not extending him, but I want an in-house replacement that can step in immediately, then Jahad Campbell becomes your guy, right? 6'3", playing in the high 220s, weight-wise. He's coming off that torn labrum, which is going to be a big question mark, but plus run defender, going to bring you sideline to sideline speed. So again, that the Quincy Williams replacement will be able to operate pretty effectively against a wide number of different body archetypes when it comes to coverage against tight ends and running backs. And he could end up even also filling the Mike role for you as well, right? If something happens where Jamie Sherwood goes down. But this would be the biggest question. Again, I think even with the Lions when they took, I think it's Jack Campbell, there was a need, and I think you still expected them to fill it within one of the first 2 days of the draft class. I don't think it was a position that would have waited until day 3, and they just opted to take the best guy that they felt in the draft class. But and I wouldn't even consider Campbell like a unicorn or anything, right? Whether it's this one or the one that Detroit drafted. But this will be the one that I think will call the biggest amount of questions into play, and again, wouldn't fit necessarily the year one winning, I guess, motto or credo that's out there. Really, it would just be strange, right? I think there will be a lot of answers here, and unless Aaron Glenn is telling you he's going to develop this guy into like a Hall of Fame caliber player, and then we end up seeing that immediately from day one, it'd be hard to justify seeing this guy get picked up. I would definitely be more comfortable with Starks or Genty being the pick here. Now, this next one is my favorite, tackle Josh Simmons. He, I feel like, would be comfortably spoken about as the best tackle in this draft class if he was able to stay healthy. I think 2022, 2023 looked really good for him. 2024 looked like there was a bit of a change in demeanor for him. You've seen a bit more of the physicality for a guy that doesn't necessarily bring overwhelming power or that physical component or, you know, that mauler type asset to somebody on the offensive line. And there's going to be questions, of course, around the health with him having the patellar tendon tear. But I think he kind of satisfies some of those minor holes that you might have questioned with somebody like Mimbu and with somebody like Will Campbell, right? And what I mean is, Armand Mimbu's really a one-year breakout, even though he started for 3 years, a clear right tackle. Will Campbell, he brings in, of course, the arm length question marks. Still met the I guess, minimal qualifications, but there's the question marks there, as well as him being strictly a left tackle over his career. So can he make the transition to the right side, and is his technique strong enough to where that wouldn't really be an issue? But with Josh Simmons, he's played right tackle for a full season before switching over to left tackle for the last 2. So the transition should be much easier on him. The understanding, the ability to flip how his hand usage and footwork is going to be should be clear. And again, if you're buying into the 2024 tape, there's no reason to think that this guy wouldn't have been a top 10 tackle. Health-wise, I don't know if he'll be ready for the start of the season. I think that's the expected indications, which also means there's going to be a bit of a developmental gap over the course of the offseason for him not really being able to just hit the ground running. But if there's a trade back scenario and he ends up being the pick, I'm plugging that in and I'm not looking back. If he was to pick a number 7, then I think that the Jets are looking at him the same way I am, where he is comfortable, maybe not comfortably, but he is considered the best tackle in this class just based on the tape he's been able to produce, and they want to see what they can do to build on that once he can get healthy. One of the final guys here, Jalen Walker. I think you look at him as an edge, even though he's been playing inside linebacker and really just moonlighting at both positions. And the reason this would probably be the second most questionable pick to me outside of Jahad Campbell is because, one, you of course have the arm length concerns. Wingspan isn't typical of what you would want out of a top tier edge guy, but really the utility and the lack of experience because of that. Edge and inside linebacker, 2 worldly different type of roles and what it's going to take to succeed in both. I think he has the athleticism to succeed at inside linebacker, but does he have the traits per se, and does he have the experience? No. I think he can make plays as an edge, but does he have the archetype you're generally going to look for? No. Does he have the overwhelming athleticism that you probably like to see for a guy that would be selected at 7? No. And then you talk about, because of the lack of experience, he's not going to have the understanding of how to set guys up over the full course of a game. Probably still won't really be able to get that because you're going to use him as a situational pass rusher because he's going to be behind JJ and he's going to be behind Will McDonald. And really you have to hope that he becomes the next version of a Bryce Huff for you, and he just ends up becoming a pass rush efficiency monster until he's called upon to get tossed into a starter role. And then you also have to question, will Aaron Glenn and Steve Wilkes adopt the same kind of mentality Robert Saleh and Jeff Ulbrich have for the defensive line? Or are they planning to play their starters and give them the majority of snaps? And so the rotation isn't as key, even though it's still going to be a pivotal part of what they look to do on the defensive line. Who knows? I think this is more of I don't care to draft an edge 3 at number 7, even if he has the potential to develop into a starting caliber guy. I think there's just too many question marks to his game that you kind of have to project because there's not going to be a ton out there on tape, and the stuff that is out there on tape isn't wildly successful, or you don't even see a ton of like jaw-dropping things where you say this is different. So for those reasons, wouldn't be my favorite pick, but still one that could end up happening. And then this one's a little bit of a cheat, but same position, quarterback, and I have 2 of them, Shedeur Sanders and Jackson Dart, and that's just because we both had them mocked to us at certain points, and Dart obviously has been getting, rising fame and accolades, I guess, from the national media. I'm going to start with Dart just because I think his value is being way too overhyped. I understand the questions around the quarterback class and what may be happening, but Dart is very effective in the intermediate levels. I think there's going to be concerns around what he can do with the deep ball. You want to get him a little bit more refined when it comes to the short timing routes that you're going to look to implement within a game plan. And of course, he can make some things happen on the ground, but I don't think he has a superpower. There's not really... I'm just not as drawn to him as a quarterback talent as I think I would be, especially when I compare it to Shedeur Sanders. I wouldn't necessarily even say I'd be overwhelmingly looking at Jackson Dart if he was still there in the second round, even if we didn't have a Justin Fields, right? So, I guess inversely, whatever. Shedeur Sanders is a guy that I really, really fell in love with because when you take a look at everything from what he can do on the field to all of the traits outside of the field that I think still has an impact on game day as well, he checks off so many boxes for me. Being coached up and obviously trained by his father for the entirety of his life is a huge plus. I think you look at him as the cog for a lot of the turnarounds at Jackson State and Colorado as well. Two different programs, two different levels of competition, still highly successful at both. You look at him having Travis Hunter, of course, but it's not like he had really any other pieces behind him outside of that, right? There wasn't an elite tier running back. There wasn't even a highly effective committee running back room. The offensive lines were pretty porous across both stops. There wasn't a strong wide receiver 2. There wasn't a tight end that was really extremely dependable. So when you look at the body of work and what he's been able to do, I am thoroughly impressed as one of the most accurate passers in the collegiate ranks, and he's hovering around over the last 3 years or so, like a 70% completion percentage, over 4,000 yards, 20 plus touchdowns, etc., etc. This is a guy that, I consider the accuracy to be a superpower. I don't know when a guy that can just throw pinpoint needles was a problem. And you look at him being able to handle a lot of big time games, a lot of high pressure moments, having to come back behind an offensive line where you're getting tapped up 1,000,000 times per game is something from a mental standpoint that could break a lot of other quarterbacks, and he's been able to stay healthy relatively. There's some bad things that he's kind of made habitual, such as, I don't want to even say drifting. He's literally just kind of moonwalking back in the pocket once things break down for him, which happens fairly often. And so when I look at the totality of the work, when I look at the accuracy that he's going to bring on day one, when I look at the expectations that his father has groomed him on and what he holds himself accountable for when it comes to winning and having that mindset and what it's going to take to get from point A to point B on game day and in practice and out there on the field, this is a guy that I think perfectly fits what Aaron Glenn is looking to achieve and what he wants to do. So if we never picked up Justin Fields, Shedeur Sanders would still be pretty heavy in the conversation for me in the first round. I just think it's not the best use of resources now. Although honestly, I would not go crazy if Shedeur Sanders ends up being picked at number 7 as the I guess QB of the future and challenger to Justin Fields and the mantle there in year 1. But I'm not making, don't get it confused. I'm not, arguing for Shedeur Sanders to be that pick whatsoever. But yeah, I really love everything that he brings to the table and what it can mean for the future of him kind of being that coach and messenger on the field for everything Aaron Glenn is looking to infuse within this team. So with that said, those are my 7 wild card selections. Again, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Who would be who you're most comfortable with on here, or if you haven't heard the name that you really like, drop it in the comments for me, and I'll catch you guys again. Appreciate it. Peace.